Welcome to video 9 in our Cybersecurity Lab 2026 version. And in this lab, what we're going to do is create users, groups, and policies to our domain controller that we just finished setting up Active Directory.
In Active Directory, users represent individual accounts for people or services that need to access network resources, while groups are collections of users or other groups that simplify management by allowing permissions and access rights to be assigned collectively. Policies, specifically group policies, are a set of rules and configurations that administrators apply to users or computers to control system behavior, security settings, software deployment, and other operational parameters. Together, users, groups, and policies enable centralized, scalable, and secure management of access and configuration across the entire domain. Now, to set our users and groups and policies, the first thing we'll do is go back to our domain controller, and we will go to the Tools tab, drop down, and then go to Active Directory Users and Computers. We will select that. And then what we will do is do the drop down for eCore Local, and we want to highlight users. Now, by default, you'll see that Active Directory groups users and groups together. We want just to keep it easier to manage. We want to be able to separate the two into two subfolders. So I'll sort them by type, and you'll see most of these are groups. So what I can do is highlight eCore Local, right click, select New, and we want to select Organizational Unit, and we're going to call this Groups. Then we'll select OK. Now you see we have groups listed underneath the eCore Local, which is the domain. So we go back to users. We're still sorted by the type. So I'm going to highlight all the security group and just drag it over to the groups folder. And now we have a users folder, which by default just has an administrator and a guest account. And we have a groups folder, which lists all the default groups. So the first one we'll configure is the users. So we'll go to users, and we will right click on the administrator. And what we want to do is copy. And this time when we name it, we are going to name it, use the username, first name Tyrell, the last name Willick, the user logon. What we're going to do for our eCore domain is all the user accounts are going to be the first initial followed by the last name. So T Willick will be the logon name for Tyrell Willick. And from there, we will select Next. And we want to give it a password, and we want that password to never expire. So give it a memorable password, and then confirm that password. And then we can select Next. And then we can select Finish. So now you see we've created a new user by the name of Tyrell Willick, who should have administrator privileges. The next thing we want to do is copy administrator again. This time what we're going to do is set up a service account. So we're going to fill in the fields. First name, I'm going to put SQL, and last name, I'll put service. And this gives us the full name SQL Service, and the login name will be SQL Service. We'll click Next, and then the password. What we're going to do is make a really simple password. I'm going to call it my password with uppercase MYP, so my password. So once again, these are simple passwords, and the reason we're setting this up, obviously you would not set up a service account with an easily crackable password, but we're going to do this because during our testing down the road, we will want to do things like Kerber roasting, so we need a service account to do that. So I'll go ahead and select next, and then we can finish it. Okay, so we did not meet the password requirements, so I'm going to go back, and then I need to add numbers and a special character, so I'll just add 1, 2, 3 with an exclamation point. 1, 2, 3 and an exclamation point. So it's my password, uppercase MYP, and then the numbers 1, 2, 3 with an exclamation point. Then we'll select next and finish. So now that we have that set up, I'm actually going to do something that unfortunately is not unheard of. It does happen, but we're going to select properties. So go to SQL Service, we'll right click, then select properties, and in the description, I'm going to put the password. Once again, it's my password with the uppercase MYP, the numbers 1, 2, 3, and the exclamation point. Then I'll click apply. So believe it or not, this has been known to happen where administrators will put passwords in the service or in the properties of a service account, and just to make their life easier, they would do that but obviously that is not sound practice. So next thing we want to do is we want to add another user, but this time we're just going to click right here in this white space. We'll select new, and then we'll select user. Now the name we'll give it this time. First name is going to be Philip. Last name Price. And this should look familiar because this is we're using this username when we set up our Windows 11 machine. So the login is going to be P Price. Once again, we're using the standard of the first initial and then the last name, all lowercase. We'll select next, and then you give it a password. We want the password to never expire. Of course, you'll get a warning about that. And then we give it that password. Then we select next, and then we select finish. So the next thing we want to do is create an additional user. Once again, right-clicking in this white space, go to New, select User. This time, we'll create an account for Terry Colby. So the first name's Terry, last name's Colby, and of course the login name will be first initial, last name, lowercase, and then we select next. Once again, we want to give it a password that never expires. We will get a warning how that is not a good idea. And then we type in that password and confirm the password. We select next, then we select finish. So what we've done so far is we set up a service account, the SQL service, and we set up a couple different, actually 3 different new users. The first one, Tyrell Wellick, who was based on the administrator account, so he will be an administrator. And then Philip Price and Terry Colby we set up as regular users. So that's all the accounts we'll set up right now. So I'll go ahead and close this. And the next thing I want to do is to set up a file share. So to set up a file share, we go to File and Storage Services on the left-hand column. Select that. And then what we want to do is to highlight shares. And then from the task dropdown, we want to create a new share. We're going to go ahead and use SMB share quick. So the very first one, just make sure that's highlighted. And then we will click next. And it will be on this server itself. And it will be on the C drive. So we can go ahead and click next. So the name of the share we're going to give this is Steel Mountain. One word, Steel Mountain, with a capital S and then a capital M. And then what we'll do is come down and select next. And at this point, what we want to do is highlight allow caching of share, and then we'll select next. And for specify permissions to control access, we will go ahead and take the defaults and we will select next. And now we're ready to create that network share called Steel Mountain. And it will use SMB as a protocol to access that share. So we'll select create. And then we select close. So the next thing we want to do is configure a service principal name. Now to set up the service principal name, we're going to use PowerShell. However, what we want to do first, the PowerShell commands are in the walkthrough. To make life a little easy, we want to be able to copy and share from the walkthrough, or copy and paste from the walkthrough. And now what we'll do is minimize the dashboard and we'll go to PowerShell. And we want to run this as administrator, so you can either right click and select run as administrator, or you could on the right side select run as administrator. So now that we've done that, the PowerShell command that we want to run is just set a service principal name. And this is the command that will create that service principal name. And we want to call it, we're using the -a flag, and then we want to call it the SQL service, which we have, created that service name earlier. So we've just ran the command. It appears to have worked, but just to be sure, what we can do is run the second command that's in the walkthrough. And you can see it found that service principal name. Now we're not going to do anything with this for a while. However, we just want to go ahead and have this set up in the lab. So when we get to the portion of the course where we want to run this, we're not using a bunch of time setting up the lab environment. We will already have much of this stuff already created. So the last thing we want to do is to set up a group policy. So to do that, we can just start to type out group policy. We see the group policy management app, so let's select that. So what we want to do now is under the forest, let's select that drop down. Under domains, we want to right click eCore local and select create a GPO in this domain and link it here. Once you've done that, we can type in what that group policy is, and what we want to call this one is Disable Windows Defender. And we'll select OK. And the reason we want to disable Windows Defender is during many of our labs, we want the suspicious commands and traffic to work and files to work, so that we can get the value out of detecting them and analyzing them. So we don't want Windows Defender stopping some of our attacks. Drop down eCore local, and then we'll expand this out a little bit so we can read it. We want to select that disable Windows Defender, which is the group policy that we just created right click it, and then select Group Policy Management Console. Select OK. Now we want to go ahead and right click the policy and select Edit. And then from there, we want to make sure that we follow the path of policies. This is under the computer configuration. We follow policies, administrative templates, and then Windows components. And as we scroll down, we want to select Microsoft Defender Antivirus. And we'll, under the drop down, or we highlight it, we can see some of the group policies that are available, including one that says turn off Microsoft Defender Antivirus. So we will double click this. This will open it and we will enable it. Now it's a little confusing. The group policy is turn off Microsoft Defender Antivirus. So that is what we are enabling, is the policy to turn it off. We're not enabling Microsoft Defender. So we'll go ahead and select apply, and then we'll select OK. So after we've done that, what we can do is we can go ahead and close the Group Policy Management Editor. And now if we look at this group policy again, this time we're going to right click it, and then we're going to select Enforced. So once we've done that, what should be happening is now that group policy exists, so any computers that join our domain, the group policy should be pushed to those computers, and it should disable Windows Defender. So that completes setting up users, groups, and policies. What we did, just to rehash, we set up several new users, including Tyrell Wellick as an administrator, and Philip Price and Terry Colby as regular users. And we also set up a Service Principal account for SQL Service. And then we set up a group policy to disable Windows Defender. In the next video, we will domain join our Windows VM that we created earlier into the eCore domain.